Good morning, everybody. Welcome to KSAT News Now. This is our bite-sized newscast streaming every weekday at 11 a.m. right here from the KSAT 12 newsroom. We're going to be streaming on KSAT.com, the KSAT TV app, Facebook, and YouTube Live. So feel free to ask us questions on Facebook if you're joining us there. And that includes questions about today's weather. Of course, that is the big story. So we're going to get right to it, bring in the man of the hour here, Justin Horn, as a lot of people are watching right now as the cold weather has descended upon South Texas. So Justin, what is the latest?
So we got the cold air last night, right? That cold front hit right about 8, 9 o'clock. Gusty winds came in with it. We've got wind chills now in the 20s, in the teens. It feels very winter-like out there. Now the question that everyone has, what about this wintry weather? Are we going to see things like snow, sleet, that sort of thing? No snow, I can tell you that. We may see a little bit of light sleet. We've had some reports of that. This pink color that you see here on the radar, that represents likely a mix of some light rain and sleet. And just got some reports here around San Antonio. Some of it liquid in the form of some light rain. Some of it maybe a few sleet pellets out around Government Canyon. But what I can tell you in general is this is all very, very light. We think impacts will be minimal today. Most of the roads are just fine. There could be some bridges and overpasses if some of this sleet were to collect, where there could be a few slick spots. But in general, I think traveling is probably going to be okay today. Temperatures marginal here around San Antonio, and that's why we're seeing some of this liquid. We have had some reports of some light sleet up around Kerrville and Hunt, out towards Del Rio. A couple of reports there, and this moisture continues to work west to east across the area. Temperatures. I mentioned the temperatures are marginal here in town. 35 degrees, so we're not even down to freezing here. 37 Port SA, 39 Castroville, 37 in Hondo. What can happen sometimes is that precipitation falls through some of this dry air and evaporates. It brings the temperatures down a little bit. We'll see if that happens. So far it is not here in Bexar County. 32 Bernie Stage, 31 Comfort, 29 in Kerrville. And we'll zoom out some. Still freezing in the hill country. Most everyone else is above freezing at this point. The wind chills, though, they are brutal. Feels like 26 here in San Antonio, feels like 18 in Kerrville, feels like 13 in Fredericksburg. So it is definitely a bundle up type day. And the dew points, well, these are important today because it's very dry at the surface. We see these dew points in the teens, and that's why a lot of this is having a hard time reaching the ground and why it's so light, because we have this very, very dry air at the surface. And as long as that continues, again, anything we see today is going to be very, very light. And that's what the Futurecast continues to show. We'll go to noontime here. Still shows a few very light showers, maybe a little bit of sleet mixing in here around San Antonio. That will continue through about 4 o'clock. And I think after that, moisture moves east and moves south. And interestingly enough, as we get into tonight, and we just talked about this if you're joining us on our appcast on the KSAT weather app and on the KSAT app, that as this moisture moves south tonight, there could be some wintry weather in places like Laredo and deep South Texas, which is interesting. They could actually have more of an impact from this system than what we're seeing here. Finally, all of that moves out tomorrow by midday. Skies begin to clear, and we get some clearing tomorrow afternoon, and it will warm up some. We'll get back into 40s. Today, a very light mix in the forecast, temperatures in the mid-30s, and we'll see northerly winds 10 to 20 miles per hour. Extended forecast, slow clearing tomorrow, increasing clouds on Saturday, and then we get more clouds Sunday, maybe some chances of rain Sunday into Monday. So that'll be our next system where we do actually have a chance for rain. And that's a good thing. We need rain. I know we're not getting much today, but we do need it. And I think we'll have a decent chance Sunday night into Monday morning. RJ.
Yeah, Justin, so of course you mentioned we're a little bit above freezing right now, but the wind chill, and that's something that we've kind of noticed. Sarah Spivey was out there this morning.
Yes,
she talked about just how cold it is, even though the temperatures may not reflect that right now.
Exactly, and that feels like temperature is so important. I mean, because that is obviously what you're feeling. So, you know, with the wind chills in the teens and 20s, it's, you know, one of those days where you might want to stay inside. Yeah,
she also said at the time that it's usually colder temperatures on elevated surfaces. Kind of explain why it's so important to kind of just be aware of those overpasses, flyovers, and those elevated roads.
Well, that's what we always get first, right? The bridges and overpasses, especially those high flyovers. A, because they're higher up, right? So, but also air can travel underneath and above, so that helps to freeze things quicker. The problem is you actually have to have precipitation, and we're just not seeing a lot of that around the area. I would imagine that if there is an isolated spot where we do get some sleet, happens to be an overpass there, there could be a slick spot. So that's why we don't want to unequivocally say roads are great,
Yeah.
because there could be a few slick spots,
Right.
but most of the roads are in good shape.
Right, and we asked people on Instagram if they had any questions for you, and had a couple of responses here. Some people asking here about, is it possible that we get any snow today? Is that even in a realm of possibility at the moment?
No, I don't think so. The profile just isn't set up for it. We have a warm layer just above us upstairs, and so that is melting anything that falls. Plus, we're above freezing here in San Antonio. So I don't think the profile sets up for that. There could be some snow south of Laredo, though, as I spoke about earlier. So that's one spot, yes, but here, no.
Okay, and one last question here. Kimberly asked, will this weather continue tomorrow and through the weekend? And I think based on your forecast here, you could kind of explain that a little bit more.
This is a one-day thing. And, when we initially talked about the threat for winter weather, people immediately thought, oh my gosh, February 2021, is this going to be the same? No, this is really a one-day event. Yeah, it will get down to 26 tonight. So if you have some sensitive plants, you want to take them inside. Obviously, the pets, get them inside tonight with these kind of temperatures. But tomorrow, we clear slowly and we get those temperatures back in the 40s, and it will be in the 50s, I think, this weekend. So it stays cool, but not cold.
Yeah, right. Okay, Justin, and you guys are, of course, doing all your the Appcast on the Weather app, the Weather Authority app, so let people know just how they can continue to follow you guys throughout the day.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted. Again, I don't think there will be a lot of concerns through the day, but if something changes, we'll be here to let you know.
All right, that's great stuff there. Thank you very much, Justin, for being with us on KSAT News Now. Make sure to follow them on social media, on air, and online throughout the day. Okay, moving on to another weather-related story here today. And for anyone who needs some shelter today from the cold, the city will open 4 warming centers to offer short-term emergency shelter beginning at 12 p.m. today. So in just a little bit, about an hour away, and they will stay open until noon tomorrow. The centers will use appropriate COVID-19 prevention protocols. Masks are strongly encouraged, and pets are welcome. So that is good news, and we will also continue to follow the latest with CPS Energy, and if they have any power outages, of course, we're updating any sort of school closures as well, and you could find all that information on KSAT.com. And another reminder that all community labs COVID testing will be closed today, as well as we kind of get past, as what they've been talking about, this 24-hour weather event. Okay, so moving on and switching gears into some other news this morning. There are less than 2 weeks left to register in the vote for the primary election here in Bexar County, and there's been a push nationwide to get more Latino voters to the polls. And while we've made a lot of progress over the last few presidential elections, there is still a lot of work to be done, especially in the statewide elections and local elections as well. And joining me now to talk more about this, how we could ignite more Latino voters, is Antonio Arellano. He's a civil rights activist. Thank you very much for being with us, Antonio, this morning. And we know that you've been following this. You've been tracking a lot of the numbers, the demographics. So I guess the first question I have for you here is that what are some of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to the Latino voting bloc?
Well, the biggest misconception is that the Latino voting bloc is not engaged, and that the elusive Latino vote keeps, dodging these elections. That's just not true. If you look at the statistics over the last couple of election cycles, the Latino vote in Texas has grown exponentially year over year. As a matter of fact, the last election cycle in 2020 saw 500,000 first-time Latino voters participate during early voting. That misconception of the quote-unquote sleeping giant is just factually incorrect. Latinos are coming out to vote and are voting in record numbers. But what's imperative is to invest in this key constituency and to better understand the key voting motivators that are driving Latinos out to the polls.
Yeah, and does that include sort of this idea that Latino voters are not a monolithic group, that there's different subsections? Obviously, we have older Latino voters that maybe are kind of stuck to some older ways, maybe some more conservative Latino voters as opposed to more of the younger liberal voters. So kind of explain how that sort of breaks down.
So absolutely, our beautiful state of Texas is massive. And because of that, there are different key voting motivators for Latinos across the state. The Latino in North Texas votes differently than the Latino in South Texas, and that requires an investment to really understand the economic pains, the different issues that are motivating them to come out to vote, and to recognize, like you mentioned, that the Latino constituency is not monolithic. It's ideologically, linguistically, and culturally diverse, and it requires campaigns and strategies of outreach and engagement that meet those demands. Looking at younger Latinos in the state of Texas, they're incredibly progressive in a lot of ways. The key issues that are driving young Latinos to the polls are issues like healthcare for all, immigration reform, and climate change, racial equity. These terms and issues that have been categorized by mainstream media as quote unquote progressive are what are truly resonating with Latinos in Texas.
Yeah, that's great information. So as we've been seeing, the GOP has made more strides with Latino voters, especially in South Texas. What have you seen there as far as the investment in that area for the Republican Party?
Yeah, there's no denying that. The Republican Party knows that Latinos are the key constituency that they must court ahead of the midterm elections. It's no coincidence that in 2019, they kicked off the presidential campaigns in the Rio Grande Valley. And just this month, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, kicked off his reelection campaign in McAllen. And so these issues, these strategic moves to court Latinos, particularly in the Valley, are because they know that there is a growing political power within the Latino constituency, and investment should be coming from both parties. The Latino vote in Texas is not a subset of democracy, it is democracy. So engaging Latinos, creating policies and platforms that speak and address their issues and concerns are going to be top of mind. Both political parties in Texas can no longer afford to ignore the largest growing population sector in the United States. If you look at the census, the population growth of Latinos in Texas is astronomical. It's really leading the way of population growth over all demographics in the state. This is why it's crucial that we are listening and addressing this constituency. What we need to do is stop looking at the Latino electorate as a given entity and start looking at them as a constituency that demands recruitment.
All right, Antonio, and to close things out here, and of course we are going to do a Twitter Spaces with Antonio here at 11:30. We'll talk about that here in just a bit, but sort of what is the overarching theme here about what needs to be done to get more Latino voters to the polls? You said we are the largest growing minority now in the state, and we have been getting more people out in recent election cycles, but what would be sort of the overarching theme to get more people out to cast their ballots?
One of the things is culturally competent campaigns. Understand this key constituency. Do not deliver just a blanket statement for the Latino electorate. Make sure that you are being strategic about capturing the attention of the future electorate of the state, recognizing that a massive investment is crucial. Whatever we're investing in organizing, mobilizing, educating, and empowering this constituency, we need to add a couple of zeros to the end of that check and bring in a real investment for this community.
All right, that's great stuff, Antonio. And as we just said a little while ago, we're going to have you on Twitter Spaces. The first time that we're going to be doing this from the KSAT News Twitter account. So everyone who's checking us out on KSAT News Now, make sure you shift over to our Twitter Spaces. Antonio's going to be there, and we're going to have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation. We're going to be joined by Lexi Salazar. She is our KSAT Explains producer, executive producer, and Ferris Sabari. He's one of our awesome digital journalists as well. So Antonio, we'll see you. We'll hear from you in just a little bit on Twitter. And Antonio has a pretty good following, so we're excited about this opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about this.
Thank you so much. See y'all on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. And just another reminder about some key important dates here. So the last day to register to vote for the March primary is January 31st, and then February 14th is when early voting begins. And again, March 1st is the election day. So we're following those days, tracking them as we move along here for, as we get ready for what should be an interesting election year. So thank you very much, Antonio, for being with us this morning. We'll see you in just a bit. Okay. All right, guys, moving on to some other news. Senate Republicans have once again blocked voting rights bill put forward by Democrats. So this is something we were just talking about with Antonio. Democrats were seeking to pass the legislation ahead of the upcoming midterm elections. The Senate failed to break a GOP filibuster on voting legislation that combines key provisions of two bills. And those two bills were the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Right Advancement Act. That means there was no majority vote on those bills. And some other big news this morning. We are following the latest this morning with local Congressman Henry Cuellar after FBI agents, were seen near Cuellar's home in Laredo. So public records list Congressman Cuellar and his wife as the owners of that home. The FBI did not say what they are looking for or what the investigation is all about. All they said is that it is ongoing at the moment. Cuellar's office released a statement saying that he will fully cooperate in any investigation. All right, and wrapping things up this morning with the Wildcats. Yes, that is the new mascot for Northside's new high school, named after Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. So Sotomayor High School made the announcement on social media the other day. Sotomayor is the 12th school in the district. Yes, 12 schools in the NISD, and will welcome students this August. It's right there near Government Canyon. And one of the coolest things about Northside is that all of the district's high schools are named after Supreme Court justices, going back to Taft, Brennan, O'Connor, Harlan, all of them. So Justice Sotomayor is the first Hispanic and third woman to serve on the nation's highest court. You can see right there. So get ready to watch the Sotomayor Wildcats ball out this fall when football season begins. And they also got a new coach there, Coach Juan Morales. He's a good dude. I remember doing a story with him earlier this year. So Coach Mo is heading to Sotomayor High School. So again, guys, thank you very much for being with us this morning on KSAT News Now. It's a little bit of a condensed version of our show this morning. And again, just make sure to follow us throughout the day when it comes to our weather online and on air, and we will have the latest for you. We will see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Have a great Friday. Stay safe and stay warm out there. Have a great Thursday.